stuffed bullock, big letters, pioneer. Underneath it, beloved wife. The women were not the pioneers of the mining camp. She would dress like a man and get hard on his freight trains. She was an outrider on a freight train that brought Wild Bill to Deadwood. But she didn't dress like a man to get the job. She dressed like a man almost every day of her adult life. Most of the time on a freight train, she was a bull whacker. She would walk alongside the oxen for hundreds of miles in the heat, the dust, the rain, the mud, the snow, and the cold with a 20-foot bullwhip. And she'd keep those oxen going in a straight line in the right direction. And she could do the job. No problem and no question. Later on, the wagon master might take her together, take them out of the pond and clean them up. Surprise, surprise, they might catch her crawling out of that water and run her off and cuss her out. She'd go to Bismarck, North Dakota, Fort Pierce, South Dakota, Sydney, Nebraska, or Cheyenne, Wyoming, get hard on a different freight train, maybe get caught and run off, maybe get the job done and get paid for it. That's the whole idea. Take the money. Walk up to the wagon master and say, look, I'm a woman, I did a man's job, and you paid me for it. If she could have kept her mouth shut, nobody would have known the difference. But she enjoyed rubbing it in. And they decided to get rid of her. So here's the plan. Take all of the new help down to the stream and clean them up and check their plumbing. Solved the problem. She was also a nurse. 1878 to 1880, we had 350 children died in Deadwood. Diphtheria, smallpox, scarlet fever. She was one of the homes that didn't have $25 to buy a cap. She would nurse the living, bury the dead. Did this her entire life. There was no fear for her own safety. One small problem. Nursing did not pay very well. Back then, the poor people couldn't even pay the doctors, and she turned to prostitution, a job that she definitely starved to death trying. Any man that looked at her twice was definitely intoxicated. When she got too old to be a prostitute, which in her case did not take very long, Dora DeFran, a town madam, for example, was a cook in her establishment, but Calamity Jane had other problems, enjoyed drinking whiskey, howling like a coyote, and raising Cain. She'd walk in the bar, slam her fist on it, try to ignore it. She'd keep it up, find the bartender would walk over. She'd say, slop it over the glass. 140 proof whiskey disappears in one gulp, and the more she drank, the louder she could howl. There'd be some drunkards say, get that loudmouth out of here. And the bartender said, that is Calamity Jane, you, get her out of here. They'd back up and let her howl. You never know. She might have been within reach of her bullwhip. Definitely cause for concern. She was living in a brothel, causing a business leave, and asked her to leave, and she left. She moved to Terry, South Dakota, 13 miles from here, and died in the local saloon. August 1st, 1906, age of 51. Her death certificate read she died from inflammation of the bowels and pneumonia, but the doctor wrote on the bottom of her death certificate, alternate cause of death, an average of 2 quarts of whiskey per day. You figure out what killed her. I think she died of a broken heart. We're looking at it, her dying request. Bury me beside Wild Bill, the only man I have ever loved. And if he doesn't like it, that's tough. She was married once in El Paso, Texas, 1895, to Bill Clinton. Slip of the tongue. Clinton Burke. She had no natural born of her own. She had one stepdaughter. Did a lot about Calamity Jane and Wild Bill. Stories that Calamity Jane made up after poor Wild Bill was dead and could not defend himself. And if I forgot to mention that Calamity Jane was a born liar. Wild Bill lived here for 67 days. Probably knew of her, probably tried to avoid her. Maybe she did die of a broken heart. She took her 27 years and 19,440 quarts of whiskey to complete the job. Dora DeFran was a town madam. She buried us on a bench over here. She got the 4 flower pots on the 4 corners of her grave. And if you're going to condemn her, you're too late. She got the face of the devil on the bottom of the urns over there. She definitely knew which direction she was headed. She ran brothels in Deadwood, Bellevue, Cheyenne, and LeBeau, to name a few, called the 3 Ds, dining, dancing, and drinking. When she died, exactly when the kids looked, her girls put up, her son paid for it. They put beloved mother, gone but not forgotten. And I'm talking about her today. I've heard rumors that some women lie about their age. Can you imagine that? Do you know that some women even lie about their age on their tombstone? She was 78 years old. Her girls put down 60. Close enough. There's a marble marker between her and her husband Joseph, and that's her pet parrot Fred. And Fred died a tragic death. He was eating artificial cherries from top of his cap, got one stuck in his throat and choked to death. Is that a tough way for an old bird to croak or what? But the city fathers bought that old bird a mahogany casket, the city band played music, and half of the town followed that old parrot up here. I wonder where they spent their free time. Calamity Jane had the longest funeral procession in the history of Mountain Rock Cemetery, 3.5 miles long. They didn't pay her for a nursing care, but they remembered. Wild Bill died. His two buddies caught each other in the steep water, dug a hole at the bottom of the hill and buried him. 2 years later, the townspeople of the cemetery, they wanted to dig up his bones and ship them to New York to a museum. They could not see the future. His buddies were in Panama. They came back, helped dig him up and rebury him. When Dora died over there, the local newspapers forgot to mention a small fact that she was the town madam. Headlines in all the local newspapers read, famous local social worker. Their eyes in Deadwood. Get your pictures, come on down. I opened my eyes yet. This is what they call Brown Rock Overlook. The guard rope, I think it's safe when you don't take the pictures, but first, they take out the flag in front of the bus. There's a flag in front of the bus flies 24 hours a day by act of Congress after World War I. A lot of Civil War veterans buried up here. Their families want to do something to honor the veterans. They petitioned Congress to give permission to fly the flag 24 hours a day. They were the first city in the nation able to fly the flag 24 hours a day. There's a guard rope. I think it's safe when you don't take the pictures. You go out to bungee cords, you can jump. Underground, almost 2 miles. You can't see the other shaft on the other side of the mountain. They have $100 million in the bank from the New York Stock Exchange and the foreign stock exchange listed as the Homestead Gold Mines out of San Francisco, started by 2 brothers, Fred and Moses Manuel, in 1876. The first year they mined $5,000 worth of gold. The second year they sold the gold mine for $70,000 to a U.S. senator from California by the name of George Hearst. William Randolph Hearst's father, Patty Hearst's great-grandfather. Now you know owns it. Homestead Gold Mine. They have mining operations in Canada, the United States, Chile, and Australia. Here is